Just in time. Thanks. Good apologies. No need for Paul. He's here. Minutes of the last meeting. Pages down to 14. Facilitated. Are we happy to approve them?
Yeah.
Disclosure of members' interests? No. No. Okay, forward plan of cabinet decisions. Sean?
Nothing to add to the signature.
Okay. So item 5, we've got update on the best use of the assets work stream. So I think Wojciech's going to introduce this, are you?
Yes.
Yep.
So that's one of our key projects in value for money corporate priority. This is instrumental in rationalizing our estate and developing a new model. I think we call it corporate landlord model, which will enhance the efficiency of our buildings and infrastructure services. So we aim to get about 2 million savings by 27-28. And that's through better management of our assets, cost reduction, cost avoidance, and things like that. We also will prepare our estates roadmap, and we will start with property review. I think we are starting in Southeast Corner, reviewing our office assets there, like old Blythe Council offices, Foundry House in Bedlington, and others. It also includes work smart principles that we know all what it is about. It's all about hybrid working and clever ways for our employees here to work. And also that includes community asset transfer policy refresh, which has been done recently, and a depot review, which I think Rob led in October last year. I will pass to Rob because he will be able to give you more details about it, but it's a high-level report at the moment, just letting you know what we aim to do and what we started to do. And Chair to Rob.
Thanks, Wojciech. What this is about, it's a fundamental part of BEST. And what BEST gives us, the way I discuss this with staff, is that there have been lots of things we've been wanting to change in many years, but actually the day job, firefighting, business as usual working has not allowed time to do that. So there are actually lots of property assets which, with a blank piece of paper, you would not have as many as you've got. This is not about pulling out of areas, about pulling out of Blythe, say. It's about having one building rather than several buildings, which are all at very low rates of use, and investing in things like public access and reception facilities, the main building, and then looking at releasing other ones. The other key driver for this is that since lockdown, we've been doing hybrid working, which is known as work smart. And what we've done now is we've broken down all the staff types and type of jobs they do into what we call persona types. And that gives you some hard and fast numerical evidence about what are the space requirements coming out from, say, people working 2 or 3 days in the office rather than 5 days. And with those mapped together, we're able to look at first the southeast of the county, but we'll be looking at the rest of the county in further phases. Linked with that, and the thing I've been trying to really align here is we've done an overall look at our estate. And then what we were hoping to do is that once we've got an estate which is fit for purpose, we are then going to move to a way of being managed. And that's where we've done our corporate landlord review. And what that should give us is a much more consistent way of looking at maintenance. So we're not just doing emergency maintenance, and we're not doing maintenance work on buildings that we're going to subsequently dispose of. So all these things are linked. This report is really a heads up that we're doing this. The commercially sensitive stuff isn't in there, the detail isn't in there, but later on you'll be seeing the full details of it. We've been liaising with staff about this, and what this gives us really, I think, is an opportunity to do something, that we perhaps we would have done going back to 2009, but it's never been the right time to do it. So we're using the resources from BEST to enable us to make some real change, and hopefully it'll lead to better services to customers, better experience for staff in terms of having decent quality officers and at the same time making some substantial savings.
Thanks, Rob. So what we're saying is there is going to be a more detailed report.
Yes,
due course.
yes.
Alex?
Yeah, I can appreciate there's more detailed comment, Chair. Thank you. Sorry. Right. Two comments which may have questions. I'm not sure because I haven't thought them out yet. I was recently at a presentation by the Port of Blyth, and similar aspirations to the county to be net zero by 2030. In fact, Port of Blyth later than that. And the Deputy Chief Executive was very honest. He said the likelihood of the Port of Blyth achieving it is low because they don't make the money to convert all the buildings. I think this is one thing you'll have to bear in mind. The older the building, likely the more the cost to bring it up to that net zero standard, and it's prohibitive. However, when you pull away, this is the second part, you put the bill onto my colleague here, who's the chairman of a parish council. Because when Joe Public wants to raise something, and there's only one building in town, it's where the parish council sits. He'll be able to tell you exactly how much it costs West Bedlington to sit. I can tell you it's 100 grand a year to pay for staff in a building at East Bedlington. Now multiply that by the county, who currently, the precept's about 10 million for all the parishes put together. Let's divide that by half for simple figures. It's costing the ratepayer 5 million quid for parish councils to deliver services that the county used to deliver. My thoughts, nothing else. When you move your building away, the front line will be the parish council. Perhaps it may be a thought in your deliberations. That's a monetary reward, monetary thank you, monetary contribution towards the parish council delivering their services is made. That used to be made in the past, Chairman. And it got withdrawn, not by this administration, by a previous administration. Perhaps if that came back, that may just show proper partnership working.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I answer that one, Chair? Yeah. I think that's a really well-made point, Councillor Wallace. I would say, however, at the moment, things need to be improved. As we sit here today, the current state of play is not good. So if we take one of my services, which is housing, we have a lot of people in acute need who present themselves at council offices. And we have people turn up to County Hall from Blyth and other offices where the staff have no reception facilities. So actually, part of this process, I'm looking at improving public access. And what we'll do, we'll look at that issue in the same way that we look at space requirements, IT requirements, energy efficiency requirements. Yeah, it's absolutely a key driver for us to actually enhance public access. But there will be areas where we'll need to look at this in more detail. But all I can say to you before, all I can say to you now is that this first phase of work in the southeast absolutely in front and centre of what we've been thinking about.
Okay, thank you. Nick, next.
Thank you, Chair. Just two questions. Are we, it may not be relevant yet, but at some stage, are we going to advance in looking at the sort of surplus land and buildings that we might have and looking at whether there's any real sort of opportunity for them to add value to those land and buildings by sort of instigating commercial developments or
Absolutely.
And then the second question is, are we looking at opportunities to use whatever empty space there may be at County Hall to sort of rationalise and save money and avoid duplication on rates and utilities?
Correct. So Advance are doing similar exercise at the moment with their assets, and of course we will be working with them if we've got any assets that may be interesting for them. And I believe for the dog leg particularly here, we are speaking with Northumbria Police and someone else about co-locating their staff with us and basically reduce the maintenance costs we've got.
Yeah, I think you've answered both questions accurately. Yeah. Just to be clear, part of this exercise will be, as I said to Councillor Wallace, to strengthen a location presence, but actually for staff who do back office support, which isn't involved with direct interface with the public. We're looking at some move back to County Hall, and we are talking to at least 2 potential partners as well to share the space with and to increase the mobility. Yeah, and just to confirm, we are discussing this issue with Advance on a number of fronts.
Thank you.
Steve?
I think you've just, Councillor Harper just asked one of the questions, which was about working with Advance, which is good to hear. And the second one I think you've just touched on is about looking with external partners. In my other day job, I work for the government, and they've been looking to rationalise the estate over the last 4 years. So I think it's really good news for the council taxpayer, and that we're going to reduce the number of properties we've got. But we just need to make sure we're doing it in the right way.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Malcolm?
Thank you. Yeah, I presume this is the best project. This is part of the best thing. Some of the language in the report, quantification of opportunities, office personas, we could have done a bit better and a bit more. I know you sort of mentioned office personas, but that just hit us when we read it. We didn't know what an office persona was. I haven't got a clue. So if we're going to get a report, can we have it in plain English? Simple as that.
What's the office persona?
An office persona, basically, in simple terms, you look at staff, and some staff are out on site all the time. Some people go out on site some of the time. Some people are visiting members of the public in their own homes part of the time. Some people, at the other extreme, are in the office absolutely 100% of the time. Some people are in the office 90% of the time. And it's like saying staff types or staff officer types. So we called it personas to describe the different types of operational arrangements each member of staff has. Because clearly, to keep it simple, if in your department you've got 100 staff who are out on site 75% of the time, and another department's got 100 staff who are in the office 100% of the time, there's a different accommodation requirements.
Explains that.
A couple more, sorry. Community asset transfer, and I did ask for the policy and
Yeah.
we've seen it, but it would have been helpful to see any revisions highlighted.
But yeah, it's been a fairly fundamental rewrite to make it fit for purpose and transparent for the public to see how they can use it. And part of it as well, Councillor Robinson, is the fact that the thing I was keen to get into that was we shouldn't be using it as a way of getting rid of buildings which are money pits at the moment, because all we're doing is transferring a problem to a community group who actually then in 2 or 3 years' time, maybe coming back to us and saying they can't support it. So it's about having a real rational approach to doing community asset transfers. Because up and down the county, there's been a number of schemes that we've had to bring back in-house because of the durability of the community group didn't stack up financially.
Yeah, and helping them to begin with.
Oh, absolutely,
Would
yes.
probably, produce similar results there. 5.8, I presume in April 2016 should be April 2026. Sorry, 50 minutes from here or something. But getting back to your estate, these potentially redundant buildings and land or whatever that I presume Advance are going to get the first chance of.
I would say there's no one simple answer to that, because some property could be re-let straight away for another commercial use. Other property may need to be substantially improved, such that demolition may be required. And other ones, I can think of some sites I've been looking at in the county where actually they make good housing sites because in the right location. So I don't think there's one answer to that. So
Well, it would seem if we're rationalising the office personas
Yeah.
into a more productive work stream, there will be redundant assets.
Yes, there will be, absolutely, and that's the.
Now, the point I'm trying to make is, a few years ago in a different administration, just about the whole estate was put up for sale. And the commercial market didn't take very much.
No.
So has the thing changed out there? Because to me, the commercial market's possibly worse than it was.
I would say, again, this is a real diplomatic answer. There's no one simple answer to that. In some parts of the county, we've been actively approached for some of our assets. In other ones, I could see that actually, because of the building configuration, because old buildings aren't necessarily useful for modern commercial purposes because of IT and things like that. So there's a locational issue and there's a building condition issue. Because some as well, remember, we lease buildings from companies. So will there be a case of us handing back leases and they'll just be looking to re-let them?
I'll look forward to a further report then.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of detail in the following reports.
I'm sure we'll be all into that. Don, next.
Thanks, Chair. I work on this report, as I think all of us in every ward could say there's a building owned by the council which is either not used or underused. And I take Rob's point that workloads with the state, etc., couldn't get this report or these changes done. But I mean, not for new Chair, property which I think stood empty for about 5-6 years. And as councillors, we've been on to estates, will you do something with it before it falls into disrepair, which it's done. And it was a very valuable piece of real estate where we could have rented it or sold it off. And if you multiply that across the county, the amount of finance that could be brought in. So I welcome this. It's just, I feel that a little bit of sort of common sense should have been used beforehand, and there's been too many things, I think, lying, especially the ones I know about. And I say, I'm sure throughout the county would have the same idea. So I welcome it. But as Rob says, maybe it should have been done 10, 15, 20 years ago.
That's just a comment.
Thank you. My fear is, will there be any staff ending up with losing their jobs because of this? And if it's going to be answered no, then that's absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate that. The other thing is people impact assessments having been completed. Is there a chance that we could have a look and see what the content of the people's impact assessment would look like, please, so we can have a look at it and see if we need to add or take out anything that we may feel that's valuable, if you don't mind.
Well, I think the second question first. Yes, we'll get that assessment.
Yeah.
First question.
Yeah, can I just answer that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is looking at the estate and the accommodation which we do in the function of the county council. We're looking at restructuring as well separately, but the accommodation review in itself is purely looking at what buildings we need to be fit for purpose, and moving forward, how we're going to manage and maintain our estate on a more consistent basis. Because up until now, the management of estates has often been funded by different departments. And this is about using what we call a corporate landlord model, where we have a central point, and hopefully there'll be economies of scale and consistency in how we do things. So we won't be in a situation where we have buildings we're going to be using long term, maintenance, particularly cyclical maintenance, has been pushed back until there's a problem.
Just come back, Chair. My worry is because if there are going to be closures in various towns and villages, etc., it's not just the impact of people who are savvy with modern technology, but we're still looking after people who aren't savvy, and that just worry in case that that the services may be removed.
Services, so it's not a frontline services.
It could end up so if the specification says the building's passed on, we look so you can't rent them out again. I'm just forward thinking.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I would just add to that point is that we haven't just looked at the space requirements for certain services. Requirements where actually we need to offer flexibility for the public. We're dealing with potentially sensitive issues they want to do face to face. And at the moment, we do not have a good quality offer for that. So that's been as important to me as just the overall number of desks. Okay. I think we'll see that for.
I think the message is actually want to be opening up more public facing reception areas across the county that we have now, which is actually
Fully get that, but just, you know, looking ahead, just in case, I'm just crossing the dot, I'm just crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
very sensible. Thank you. Alex, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, for allowing me back in again. Just for some clarifications, leading on from what Malcolm said a couple of minutes ago. My memory's terrible, but I think it was about 2010, a chap from County called Paul Yeo. He came around all the parishes and said, these are our community assets. How can I interest you in taking them over? Right? Very kind of it. Rob's answer to Malcolm was, or Malcolm's question to Rob was, commercial. I'm not interested in commercial. I know you will have to be. But the original community asset transfers that were made were buildings. I think of one that went to a town council.
Yep.
I can think of another one that went to a town council.
Yep.
And I can think of one that Ellington has become a major beneficial resource. So what I'm saying is, if there's a parish or a town council, and I'm well aware of one, which I've been requesting for a number of years for a building that's about 170 years old, I don't think you'd like to have to bring that up to net zero, right? Dilapidated? John, yours would look like a palace compared to this one, right? Surely every asset you're looking at, which is a massive task, and I think it's the one that has to be done. I agree with John. It's a good piece of work and it has to be done, and I appreciate there's a lot of detail that follow. I really do appreciate that. But surely we aren't excluding the voluntary organisations or the town and parish councils. And in fact, I would suggest an expression of interest will help reduce your work and give you a better opportunity to concentrate on the reality of getting to the commercials to make a sales.
I think that's a really well made point. And just to clarify, parish and town councils taking over buildings is less of an issue than what we don't see as much is where we've done asset transfers because of really well-meaning local political support. And you have a community group who are really enthusiastic, have some two great people who want to move things forward. They get say handed at a building that's 170 years old. And actually what we do is we end up having to go back in 3 years' time when they've not been able to look after it. And all it's saying is that for us to pass it over, we're going to do due diligence that the group is robust enough and that the package we give them will enable them to sustain their activity. Otherwise, we should be looking at it commercially. So it is really about doing it on an even-handed basis, this.
Thanks for making it very clear to me.
Because we'll give you one example, if I may. And there's a building up in one part of the county that we gave to a very worthwhile local cause. After a couple of years of work, they could make it stand up. So they're now put it on the open market. And actually, with a bit more of a rigorous approach, we should put it straight on the open market, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Any other questions or queries on that? No? Well, thank you very much, Robert and Richard. Great. So we'll move on then to the deputy. Feel free to sit. So debt recovery update. Now it says again, void check.
Yes.
To say anything for?
That's usual the recovery update, you know, numbers are in front of you. Just looking if they got anything to highlight here. The council tax arrears peaked, I think, but the recovery rate is still high. I think it's the second highest in the Northeast out of 11 councils. So it's just all factors like cost of living, COVID, and all of that affected that. There, we've got. If there is anything unusual, I think it's, Keith is there to tell you, and if there is anything to highlight, but I don't think anything unusual. It's report as you've seen before.
So Keith, that gives a very good overview.
The update is a snapshot as at the end of the financial year. It's scrutiny twice a year. Just a note, the update. The first part deals with sundry debt. The larger debts that are noted, they have reduced, some of them have reduced since the report was around the particularly around the NHS. The NHS customers are notoriously slow to pay, but it is notable that the actual level of overdue debt has reduced quite significantly. The figures are what they are, say, at the end of the financial year. On to council tax, the arrears figures are there. A notable success, though, is that our collection rate of 96.7% for 23-24. That's above the national average for unitaries, which is 96.2. So, despite the ongoing pressures of cost of living and so on, the council has performed well there. Some information on the recovery options have been viewed. Business rates, the next part. The NCC collection rate of 96.4% is below the national average, being increased to 97.2%. Again, as well as civilian, so the structure of the Northumberland, the local economy, we have a rural, small businesses. So we're trying to collect from a high number of small businesses, and a larger proportion of the rates income comes from a high number of small businesses together. In contrast, some local authorities or urban ones, they collect a high proportion of their income from a smaller number of large businesses. So that's a bit of complicated group. There's also some figures there or details of recovery that's taken place. Housing benefit overpayments, we continue to identify overpayments. They continue to recover. However, there are some reducing opportunities for recovery from ongoing benefits because or from ongoing housing benefits as customers move on to universal credit. Finally, the housing continue to perform very well. With the funds and agencies in debt. The housing figures are there. It is a snapshot as of the financial year. I have covered that very briefly, Chair.
Thank you very much. Good overview. Malcolm?
Thank you, Chair. Just council tax number 8. I was going to ask about the arrears, to see going the wrong ways, any reasons for it. You mentioned a couple there. Is there any reasons why the arrears are going the wrong way?
Well, people are struggling to pay different bills, not just the council tax bill. So that's why arrears are going up. It's just a general cost of living crisis, inflation, and all of other issues we've got at the moment. That's why it's going in the wrong direction, I think.
So you're suggesting you would agree that that should be going the other way soon?
I hope so. Inflation is going down, so I hope the arrears should go down. That's the logic, but
Okay.
I don't have that.
Number
magic
14,
wand. Yeah,
final notices. Again, it's gone up. Is that subject to change of policy? 14 final notices. Recovery notices.
Yeah.
Gone over 2,000 again. Page 35.
It's still oscillating or on the same numbers, like in the recent years. Steve, can you respond to that one?
We've asked Keith that one. Has there been any change of policy regarding issuing of final notices in the last year or so?
Yeah.
No, there hasn't been a change of policy.
Thank you. My last one, Chair. Just the information. 41. Repair recharges. And I'm looking at these figures, the substantial figures. Is that damage under former tenants? Is that damage they've caused the property that we seek to get back off of? I don't understand what it means. Repair recharges. It's the third line, 41, and it's former tenants. 230, nearly 235,000.
I regret that Rob left because that will be his area. It would be.
Sorry, on page 40, item 41 is a table, and the third thing down is repair recharges,
Charges.
and there's big figures for that, 234,000. Just do you outline what that really covers? Repair recharges. Is that for like people who actually replace?
Yeah.
Not too familiar with the detail of that, but there where tenants cause damage to the property, and the housing department will bill those tenants for that damage caused. I don't have the detail behind that, but I think
That's what it is.
Thought it might have been, and it looks to be successful, so carry on, champ.
Thank you, Chair. Page 33 in the bottom note. I'm a little bit concerned about the drug social care and the outstanding debt of drug social care. And is it solely down to staffing problems? Because I see that the priority seems to be lower down the list to pay these bills. And I just wondered if we can identify how many people are actually in this predicament, because it's very sad to see. And I also worry that if they think that's a low priority, what actions will we be taking in future if it remains a low priority for them gainers, because they can't recover, because going on to this new one benefit, there'd be a lot of people losing money. So I just worry, and I just like to see if we can keep a close eye on this. I'd be very grateful.
Of course.
But I would like to find out the figures of how many actually are in this predicament,
Of course, we
please.
can probably find out that information. Sorry, we can come back to you.
This is children's social care.
So it's on bottom of page 33, Chair. It's in notes, right on the bottom.
Yes.
With the number of invoices, but we don't know how many people. Basically.
I think that, some invoices will be more.
Yeah.
More than one invoice one. I mean, this is, a lot of my day job is dealing with this, and we are seeing difficulties with the council taking on deputyship, and that seems to be because of staffing shortages, which I think hopefully we're going to rectify.
Yes.
Because once you take over the finances, you can pay the invoices.
Yes, and I totally appreciate that, but I'm just hoping that nothing happens to these vulnerable people in the meantime until staffing problems get sorted out and, their vulnerability, because, that affects mental health issues as well. So I hope it's done sooner than later, if you don't mind. Thank you very much.
Actually, my main question was relating to that, which I think has been answered. And then, but can I just quickly ask, occasionally members of the public damage council property. I've had a couple of examples in my ward recently where bollards and road signs and things like that are hit by cars. Presumably we attempt to recover the costs where somebody else has done the damage. Are those figures included in here anywhere?
Somewhere.
Sorry, I was speaking to Keith, sorry, and I couldn't hear. I can't hear.
So the question is, there are circumstances where people damage our property, like hit our bollards, knock our road signs down, damage our buildings, massively. And we send them bills for that, if we can trace them. Are those figures included in here? People that we recover, seeking to recover?
They are the recharges. Definitely get more detail behind it if that.
Yeah, just be interested to.
Would be covered in the debt because they owe us money.
I think that's what I'm more interested in. Is there a robust process in place to make sure that wherever possible we do recover through the, let's say it's a driver's insurance or whatever, and.
I'm sure there is a process to recover from insurance, and in terms of criminal damage, I think that's a more complicated process.
Yeah, criminal damage.
I think I'm talking about accidental damage.
As in that people's smashing bollards by the car. Then is
Sorry, and just this is probably the same subject on page 41, the very first paragraph, with regard to the tenants, and their arrears. And there again, I see it's a higher uptake of those that aren't on benefits than those that are on benefits. So there again, I would appreciate some kind of feedback with regard to that, because of all the migration going on the one benefit and the impact that may have on your collection rate, because obviously then they're going to be in worse arrears, and they're not going to have as much money as they had. So just like to keep updating about that as well, if you don't mind, Chair.
well, I think we're discussing universal credit. The impact on universal credit migration. I think we'll talk about maybe getting more on that. We have that? Yeah, but what I'm saying is, for the future, can you raise with the benefits team, maybe getting a report on universal credit? The impact of migration to universal credit would be nice. If you can ask for that, that'd be lovely. I will. Right. Anything else on this report? No. No, great. Thank you very much. And we'll move on. Thank you, Keith. And then we'll just move on to the financial performance. This is the final outturn. So, Wojciech?
Yes, so that's the final outturn of the financial year 23-24. I see Jan is on the screen ready to answer any questions, but in a nutshell, we delivered our budget within the limits. We got slight underspend there. We had to reprofile some of the capital project that because of the cost pressures, delays and all of that. I think it's about 41 million. Correct. To the next years. Treasury management, everything managed within approved limits. I think the return from investment was a little bit higher, but that's mainly because of the higher interest rates. And the most important thing I would like to highlight is cost pressure in adult services and children's services. We see a massive rise in the cost. That's why we created 2.7 million additional reserve to tackle that, mainly in children's services, when the children's social care costs basically skyrocketed in the last few months. We are trying to tackle that, and I think John has got something to say because she was writing her pen. No idea.
Okay. Well,
that's to John.
Okay. So over to you, Jan. Anything to highlight before we take questions?
No, I think Councillor Plush has covered all of the key points that I wanted to make, so I'm just happy to take any questions.
Lovely. Okay, any questions? Nick?
Hi, Jan. There's a variance, a negative variance on adults of 1.5 million. In the previous report, we've seen the debt on adult social care go up by about 3 million. And presumably we only invoice people in adult social care where we where they are eligible to pay. So i.e. they have assets over whatever the threshold is, 28,000 or something. And so, but we are struggling to collect it. Is that 3 million increase over the last 12 months reflected in that 1.5 million, or is that something that will be, there'll be a sort of bad debt write-off at a later point? I.e., the question I'm asking, is the situation actually worse than that?
Okay, so so as we raise the invoices, we recognise the income in the accounts, but you're right, we have a bad debt provision, and that bad debt provision is reviewed annually. So this is after taking account of that assessment of the bad debt provision that's needed. The reason why adults reported this £1.5 million overspend last year is because they didn't deliver the in-year saving in the previous year. So this is so every year they have a target, an efficiency target, and if in any one year, you know, they fail to meet that target, it gets rolled over to the following year, and that's what's happened here. There is additional effort which is going into financial assessments. So I think there is reference in the report to the fact that we've been recruiting 2 additional posts in the financial assessments team to try and catch up, because if you don't carry out a financial assessment in a timely way, you can't then backdate that assessment at the point that it's done. So you're losing out on the ability to invoice for that income, you know, in that period. So so I have agreed with the Director of Adults Services that we will fund, I think it's 5 additional posts for the financial assessments team to get on top of those financial assessments and ensure that they're done in a timely way, which I think will also help with debt recovery, because if you you know, if you're doing it in a timely fashion, it's going to be much easier to actually then sort of collect that debt. And one of the issues clearly is when you're dealing with very frail elderly people, you know, that you know, by the time you get round to doing that financial assessment, unfortunately they may well have passed away. So that's really important that we keep on top of the invoicing and the and prior to that the financial assessments.
Thank you. That explains it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. John,
Hmm.
page 46 at the top of the page. It's about net underspends of capital program. After the utilisation of the earmarked reserves, was those earmarked reserves within the general fund, or were
No, they're separate. So general fund is an unring-fenced reserve which is there to support the council in dealing with various financial risks. That's I often call that our rainy day money, and we try not to touch that, the general fund reserve, but we have earmarked reserves for various purposes, and in some cases that's because we've received grant funding for a specific purpose but we haven't spent it. Some of those reserves will be for capital projects, some for revenue, and we plan for the use of those reserves during the year. So when the budget comes to council every year, we set out how we are planning to use those earmarked reserves during the year. Right. So this is after drawing down that from those reserves on a planned basis.
Okay, the treasury management, and this is just a very general point, reading the treasury management stuff. Do do all councils just exist on the never, never? I mean, there's no strategy to pay down debt, it's just strategy to roll over debt? Is that the way it works?
No, we have a
What?
treasury management strategy, which also comes to full council every year, which sets out our borrowing policy. So again, it's all done on a planned basis, and the revenue implications of any borrowing are built into the revenue budget. What's happened here is that, and it's based on the planned capital programme. So you approve the capital programme, we then calculate the amount of borrowing that's required in order to finance that capital programme, net of any capital grants, revenue contributions, etc. And the capital financing costs are then calculated using the interest rate forecast. In this instance, and this is a pattern in recent years, because of the significant amount of capital programme slippage, the actual capital financing costs have been significantly lower than we budgeted for. And on the treasury management side, we have also been canny in using our cash balances to avoid external borrowing. So we've also benefited from that, and from slightly lower interest rates than we forecast at the time the budget was set. So I think the answer to your question is no, we don't just live on the never, never. But as we continue to spend through the capital programme, there is a natural upper limit in terms of the amount of borrowing that we can sustain, without that being at the expense of maintaining our revenue funded services. But that is what the treasury management strategy sets out every year, what those limits on borrowing are, and the prudential indicators in that report spell out what the revenue implications of the capital programme are.
Right, thank you. Moving on to the BEST programme, Transformational Fund Reserves. It mentions several fixed term roles. Don't know how many roles were needed. It also mentions the cost of 3.657 million. Is that extra or included in the 9 million we agreed to put into the BEST programme?
Can you tell me which page you're looking at, please?
Page 54, 11.3, Jack.
Page 54, 11.3. Okay. Yeah, so I can't tell you off the top of my head how many fixed term roles. I'm happy to follow that up after the meeting with you. This is the cost of the programme team that we need to deliver BEST. And we have a number of people who have been seconded to or are filling those BEST programme roles, and a number of people who are working on BEST as just part of the day job. So it's a mix, but we do have some fixed term roles that have been recruited to externally.
So, I mean, the BEST programme was the 3-year term, and we're in the 3rd year now, aren't we?
Well, not really, because the first year was so council investment was profiled over 3 years, but the first year was mainly spent doing the strategic business case. So we've only been in delivery for about a year now. Right. So we started actual delivery in 2023-4, and with the appointment of the delivery partner in November of last year.
Yeah, John, you gave us wrong last year for saying it was year 1. You said it was year 2. Now you're giving us wrong for saying
well, the fund we're in year 3 of the funding, but we're not in year 3 of delivery of the programme, I think is the point I'm trying to make.
The only other point I would ask with relevance to this is, are these rules going to last more than the term? I mean, I presume they're going to last more than this year.
Yeah, so we will carry over any unspent funding, because what we're doing is we've set up a reserve to fund the costs of the programme. And there are 3 contributions to that reserve, the last of which has been made in this year. As we incur expenditure in delivering that programme, we will draw down the funding from that reserve. So that will carry forward into future years, but there won't be any further contributions to the reserve beyond this financial year.
That was my question in a nutshell, wasn't it? Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I give just for clarification, so I get my head around it? Could I ask, to date, as against, the amount of money we've set aside, how much have we actually saved in BEST as against what we put aside for this BEST programme and employing these people?
Right. So in the current year, we budgeted for savings of about £3.6 million. And obviously that increases significantly in future years.
Sorry, it's just that I'm just wondering whether it's going to be best values against actually what we actually save, what we're going to be spending. Sorry, Jenna, just for clarification.
Yeah. So that increases year on year. I don't know off the top of my head what the savings target is for next year, but we have built in savings in this financial year and then a further increase. They are, I think the really important point for you to understand is that those are recurrent savings. So a one-off investment of £9 million, which will deliver recurrent revenue savings in future years. So if you're looking at return on investment, you need to look at that over a period of time. You don't, go back to best use of assets. If we save £1 million a year on the cost of maintaining our office estate, that's £1 million that we save every year. So if you look at that over a 10-year period, we save £10 million. And and the profiling of those savings is something which we're constantly working on. As we develop the business cases, we refine our understanding of exactly what the quantum of those recurrent savings are going to be and the timing of them, so that we're able to then build that back into the budget. But there will be a very, very significant return on that investment, and as that becomes more refined, that's some of the detail that we'll be able to share with the committee.
Thank you. That's Jack.
Jan, there's a lot of figures, and I apologise in advance if I've got them wrong. On page 50, 8.4, it explains £117 million invested in transport, including the Northumberland rail line.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, a question on the Northumberland rail line, and on page 78, appendix A, it explains the Newcastle Northumberland line had an additional £10.3 million added to the works. And on page 81, it explains it was to accelerate certain works to enable the line to reopen during summer 24. Being a ward councillor who has one of those stations who knows it won't be open in summer 24, I'm not asking you to explain what works was done, but can you inform me and the committee the works done is for the whole line, or was it specifically for one area? And more importantly, will that harm the likelihood of Bedlington reopening?
I'm sorry, that's not a question I can answer. I think that's one for the Director of Place and Regeneration. So can I suggest that we ask him to reply to you
Yeah.
outside of the meeting?
No problem, as long as John's written down what I said, so I can remember.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions for Jan? Oh, welcome.
I'll just give everybody else a chance, Chair, but John, while I've got you, the HRA, the Housing Revenue Accounts mentioned several times in here. Now, as far as I understand, it's going to take, we're giving it a 40-odd million pound hit to build some new social housing. But I've never seen that in any figures anywhere. So is that included anywhere? Because that's
So-
supposed to be an ongoing project.
So I think what you're referring to is the housing investment programme. Every year again, we bring a report, the annual rent setting report, which includes the planned use of that housing investment programme.
Yeah.
So that's where the detail would be set out.
Right. Okay, it's the administration are working to say they're going to build 1,000 new social houses and that was going to pay for it. I just don't see it in any figures anywhere. That's all.
Okay.
I'll ask
Well,
different.
again, I think that's that's I take it Rob is not there now. Rob's already left the meeting because I think that would be one for Rob to answer. I'm not aware that a target of 1,000 new social homes has been set by the administration.
I just watched the videos of the full council meeting. You can see it several times. I've asked.
But again, if you want details of that housing investment programme, the HRA housing investment programme, I'll get Rob to circulate those after the meeting.
What I actually want is details of where the houses are, when they're going to be built, when they're occupied. That's what I want.
Exactly. So I'm not in a position to answer that. That's a housing matter. But I'm sure Rob will be happy to give you an answer on that afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions that Jan can answer?
Yeah, just ask me finance questions, please.
It's not a question to Jan, but it's the committee, because the best, when we introduced the best program, it was kind of controversial or whatever. And it appears to be paying off, as some people, thought at the time. So should we have a separate, do we get a report on how best itself pays off over the years, a yearly report or something like that?
I have reports on best, it's 3-year programs.
So year on year program, how much we are, benefiting, how it is direction?
You get it.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah,
We get it.
Well, we get the zero savings, but we get specific best.
Yes.
We'll clear together.
Okay, right. I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Sorry, last one, John. Sorry, and it is finance. Last year, I asked you about the projected use of reserves, which was going to be 71 million, I think. Can't see that figure in here. So have we not used that 71 million, which at the time we'd use something like 20 million and we're going to use another 50. But I don't see that figure reflected anywhere. So have we not used that projected use of reserves and saved that money?
So we will have drawn down reserves in accordance with those plans. Sometimes we might not need to have brought down all of that funding, but Appendix M shows you the position. Page 85 of your agenda shows the movement in council reserves. So you can see general fund, we started with 50.9 million. We've added 356,000 to the general fund reserve during the year. We have, and then there's further detail below. So you can see In the HRA reserves, we started with 40 million. We've drawn down 2.4 million. So we have a closing balance of 38. And so far as the rest of the reserves are concerned, we started with specific reserves of 71.8. We actually added 5.6 million to our earmarked reserves, general fund reserves, during the year. So we had a closing balance of 77 million, but that's a net position. So even though in aggregate, we added 5.6 million to those specific reserves or earmarked reserves, that will be after drawing down from some of those reserves as we plan to during the year, but then adding additional amounts to those reserves. And on the following pages, you will see a detailed breakdown of all of those individual reserves and the movements during the year. So, for example, you can see on page 87, one of the reasons why those reserves have gone up is because of Section 106 money. We started with a balance of 14.697 and we added just under £5 million to that reserve during the year.
Now, you know, I know this stuff's a black art and, you know, I'm not a practitioner, but when you tell me, and this is April 2023 to 24, so it's within the report that I asked the questions about. But when I look and you're forecasting the reserves at 71 million, and I don't see it in these figures.
Well, actually, it is there.
Where?
Sorry, it is in Appendix M. There's on page, starting on page 41 of your pack and following on pages 42, 43 and 44.
Get that,
Oh,
Jan.
sorry. In your agenda, it's page 85, 86, 87 and 88. That's where all the detail is set out.
No, sorry.
71 million is bottom of page 85.
That's total specific reserves balances. What I'm talking about is last year you were forecasting to use 71 million.
I just don't think we were. I don't think we were forecasting to use
1
million.
It was. I can remember the numbers. It was 20 odd million and we've got 48. That's something to spend. But and I asked the question about it because it seemed a hell of an amount of money to take out of reserve. But that was within this April 23 to March 24. It was within that financial year. And it was about last quarter March. Well, I can see the reserve balance, but what I'm talking about is the forecast of taking out of reserves the 70 million.
That would have hit the deadline.
And that was across that financial year.
See, if we'd had 70 million reserves last year, Malcolm, and we forecast to use 70 million's worth of reserves, that would have the forecast position would be zero, which would not be allowed. The forecast position is 17 million on page 47 in effectively the P&L variance report. You've got an earmarked reserves of 17.85 million, final outturn of 14 million, and we've used 3.6 million less than we forecast to use. So I think that 71 million figure must have been the actual level.
So that's quite right. So we only plan to use 17. So I think you've transposed those numbers and turned 17 into 71 million. But we only actually drew down 14 million. So,
John, but if you look at full council minutes, it resulted in a question asked if we're living above our means by spending 70 odd million out of reserves. I've asked about it 2 or 3 times. And, you know, I just asked you just now if we hadn't used all of that, is that how we get an increase in reserves, sort of?
Okay. Can I suggest that we have an offline discussion just to sort this out after the meeting? And in the meantime, I will go back and cross-reference this to the budget report that was approved by council in February, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it.
Thank you very much, John.
That's very useful. Thank you. Right. Any other questions on the report? No. Thank you very much, John.
Okay. you're welcome.
Just moving on to the work programme.
Just to confirm, there are a number of clarifications that have been asked, there are a number of reports. What we'll do is we'll go through the minutes, identify where there are gaps, and we'll ask the officers to.
Those reports.
I mean, just where we can clarify without actually coming back.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I took the opportunity to write to Sean, copied yourself in.
Yes.
And Liz done, I think. Basically, I'm sure everybody recalls last year there was a conversation where we're reading things, what was going to happen to British Vault, what wasn't going to happen to British Vault. We're getting nothing in front of us. Unless you read it in the newspaper or listened to it on the radio, we didn't know what was happening. So what we agreed was we'd bring it to the committees, except commercial confidentiality, or that would be on pink papers. Unfortunately, British Vault disappeared. It's very sad, but it did. However, we're now looking at the possibility of a data centre. So I don't want to get into that situation again, where Mrs. Cannybody or Joe Public asks me a question, or my colleagues in Beverton a question, and we can't answer. Commercial confidentiality, I haven't got a problem in this world of saying to somebody, I'm sorry, it's commercial confidentiality. I've been in local government 30 odd years, I know how to say it. I've got no problem saying it. What I don't want is to read in the papers something that's even been the cabinet, but we haven't seen. And that is the system that's there, not your fault, Chair. Nobody in this committee's fault, it's just the system it is. Anyway, Sean took it forward, and Simon Nielsen's agreed that there will be a report coming to this committee starting in September. So I think that's progressive. And to be honest with you, Chair, if there's nothing, a sheet of paper to say confidential, nothing's happening, fine. I can then tell Joe Public and say, look, not in it. But Chair, just to round that off.
Yeah.
The reason being is £10 billion private investment, 10 billion from Blackthorn or Treadstone or whoever it is, right? And £110 million to be invested in the area, creating more jobs. If we haven't got the right to say that that's spent wrong, there's something wrong. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, well, I think there's two issues. One is what's going to happen with the site, which is, and the other issue is the 110 million the council's going to get. What the plan's spent it on. That's a separate issue. Also, we want to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Chair, for agreeing to it.
I think that I would just mention on that one, if it's coming to planning soon, you know, we'll have to watch what we're doing. But
September 24th.
I think the work programmes maybe is where I'd ask about the asset risk strategy.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, that's well, basically, obviously that asset risk strategy currently goes to audit. We've asked audit that whenever they is prepared for audit, we want to hear as well. So we're going to get it at the same time.
I don't think we've got the remit for the detail, but I certainly think we've got the remit for the overall strategy.
Yeah,
you know.
And that's going to come in. So Sean's talking to the audit organisers when they have something we'll get to.
It was just felt to avoid duplication. If we're sorry,
but that's
we don't know how it works exactly. I've referred things to risk strategy myself, hoping that it works the way I think. But it would just be helpful if we oversaw how it
strategy. Yeah, that's our remit. So that's going to come.
Yeah, just finally on the work programme, if members do have any issues that you want to flag up, just come directly to me, and what I'll try and do is I'll try and have the answer to big committee as I did with Alex.
Brilliant.
Particularly as there are a number of issues going through cabinet and the forward plan you might want to look at further down the line. Obviously, the best assets is obviously one of them.
Yeah.
That's going to do cabinet in September. And there will be the detail that you've got to be in that report, and then you will be able to put it forward to a future meeting. So just look out for those, and if there's anything you want, just let me know. And I'll liaise with David. And that's all.
That's great. Okay. Urgent business, Benny? No, because it's been dealt with. Right. Okay, thank you very much.